you go to 10, 20, 50 investors before you get the first yes, right? So you might be spending weeks on calls and just getting rejection one after the other. And that makes the next call a bit easier because you're a bit practiced, but then it also makes the next call that incrementally a little bit harder because you're just coming from this swarm of rejections. Why is that something that is celebrated, right? Like that doesn't mean validation. It doesn't mean success. It just means that now you owe someone a return. My main lesson was kind of listen to people smarter than you. The biggest myth is that raising money is somehow a criteria of success. This idea that a good product would sell itself probably doesn't. I think distribution is at least as important as the product, right? Like you see companies that have excellent distribution and not a great product doing really well, and companies that have a really good product but haven't invested in distribution don't.
Welcome to a new episode of Off the Cuff podcast. Today we are joined by a powerhouse guest who defines what it means to be a global builder. From his roots right here in Delhi at Mother International to the world-renowned Y Combinator stage in Silicon Valley, he has spent over a decade at the intersection of tech and impact. He's a GitHub star, a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree, and a serial founder behind ventures like Oswald Labs and Pabio. Fresh off his exit from the AI sales platform First Quadrant, he is here to share his journey as an engineer, designer, and angel investor. Please welcome Mr. Anand Chowdhary. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Okay, sir. So let's begin. First question that I want to ask is, how would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Oh, wow. Okay. Builder, curious, persistent. I feel like I enjoy making things. I think a lot of these is because I'm just a curious person. I like to learn how things work, and I feel like persistence I feel strongly attached to that word because I just wake up and do the thing every morning, and until it's done, I think it's really fun.
That was really amazing. Moving on to next question. You have lived and worked in India, Netherlands, and the US. So how have these different environments shaped your thinking about technology and entrepreneurship?
So I think I grew up, in New Delhi, and I go back every year at least once, and it's really nice. I think I learned people in India, we are very ambitious. We typically want to do, make our own path. I think you are very familiar with Jugaad. You see problems at a different scale and you figure out an innovative solution. I think compared to the Netherlands, there's a lot more process, there's a lot more directness. Dutch people would tell you to your face if an idea is bad. I think that's a gift in its own way. In India, we are a bit more different in that cultural way. I think Silicon Valley, specifically in the US, teaches you scale, teaches you speed. I think the ambitious level is similar to India. In Europe, it's a bit more kind of balanced. So I think they are all. I'm really grateful that I get to experience all of them. I think there's a lot of similarities between the US market and the Indian market. You can work on things on a big level with funding on like a billion-person scale. And in the Netherlands, it's more like about process. It's more about sustainability. So I think there's a lot to learn in all of them. I think there are similarities, and they're also very different. So I think I'm super grateful that I get to experience kind of India, Europe, and the US. I think there's a lot to learn kind of from each of them.
Okay, so thank you so much. Now let's move on to some questions related to your early journey.
Yeah. So, sir, I was also very much amazed. You were building startups like Class Rebels, while many of us are starting our colleges and figuring out colleges. What was the most significant sacrifice you made in your late teens to achieve this?
I think that's a good question. Looking back, I really don't feel like I have a good answer. Like, I don't feel like I sacrificed anything. Like, I feel like I had a good time. I had a fun high school experience. I enjoyed college. Maybe there were some parties I probably missed out on. Maybe I didn't study as hard as I should have, I feel like, because I was doing a startup at the same time and pitching to potential users and investors at the same time. I don't think I regret it. I think there's a version um, in my early teens, kind of a early 20s, late teens person that maybe could have been a bit more fun, possibly. But I think I really don't feel like I regret any of it. I enjoyed it so much at the time, and also looking back. Maybe if I had to say one thing would be stability. Potentially that is something I sacrificed because I dropped out of college. Then I started a company. I was doing the startup the whole time I was in high school, then in college. So maybe I sacrificed kind of the safe path, the predictability, and that maybe has its own kind of challenges. But I feel like it was all really fun.
Get you, sir. So was there any personal experience of a realization that you made yourself that accessibility feel urgent enough to build a company around?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the accessibility space is a very small space. You know, all the founders, we all know each other. And it's always really inspiring to see that people have their own personal journeys that got them to work there, right? Like some of the smartest founders I know are people with disabilities or people who saw something in their friends and family and realized that that's a problem worth solving. If I'm honest, for me, it was not like that. So I do miss the authenticity. It wasn't a personal experience, but I enjoy technology, right? I've been building things since I was a kid, early single-digit ages. You know, doing stuff on the computer. I built my first website before I was 10, and I feel like so the story was when I was doing consulting in and after high school. I was working with like large e-commerce companies and helping them do a mobile strategy from their websites. And I realized that one of my clients, their website was not accessible to people with disabilities. And I thought, okay, it's just an interesting data point. But then when I worked with the next client, also in e-commerce, I noticed that their website was also not accessible. And then the next, and then the next. And I realized that this is a pattern that people don't make websites in a way that they are accessible to everyone. And so for me, it was this kind of a thing that I enjoy technology so much. I love the idea of like I buy, you know, the latest AI devices and gadgets still to this day all the time because it's just so exciting to see that it's not great that a lot of the people in this world are just it's kind of gate kept, right? They're just not able to use it. So what can I do to help everyone get access to the technology we have? Because, for example, a smartphone, if you give it to a family in a rural village, it's not just that they get Instagram and TikTok, which they do, but also like if you're a farmer, you find out about what government subsidies there are and what seeds you should put in what season prediction, or your daughter who doesn't get good sexual health care education in school would have it for the first time. So like giving a phone to a family means kind of so much more than just that phone. And so I feel like this idea was really important to me that if I enjoy technology so much, how can I make sure nobody's excluded from that? So for me, it wasn't really a personal story in accessibility as much as it was my personal story of just really liking technology and then trying to get that to everyone.
So, sir, I would like to ask you about the questions about like building your the journey about building Oswald Labs. So, what were the biggest missteps during your building journey and the early days, and how did they influence your approach?
I think we have a lot of mistakes, so I will try to keep this short. So I think we did a lot. we couldn't figure out how to build a sustainable business because it started from a place of solving like a problem and building an app, right? So for me, when I started Oswald Labs, it was not supposed to be a company. It was a browser extension that I built at a weekend hackathon because I identified a problem and I just made it free and open source and published it on the web. And that was it, basically, story over. But then a few weeks later, I got an email from a therapist in New York, and she said that this is the best tool that she has used for kids with dyslexia, and the kids she works with are able to read much easier because of this. And I thought, oh my God, something that I built in a weekend has this real effect on thousands of real people. This is a problem worth solving. And so then I decided that I should start something and do this full time. The problem was, of course, I was an open source and free product. And so from there, trying to build our accessible smartphone, finally building our web accessibility platform, it took us a lot of tries to figure out the go-to-market. Like I was really interested in the technology part and the design, but like building good tech is one thing, getting it to users' hands is the next thing. But then the main thing is how can you kind of make money from it and build a sustainable business? So it took us many attempts to generate revenue. Our first few products just didn't. So I think because of that, I think the fundamentals are definitely very important, especially in a post-cloud code world where anyone can build product. Distribution becomes more important. And I think for us, we did try to do a lot. We built different products which were potentially like multiple different companies in one. So we did spread ourselves very thin. So I think now I feel like the name of the game is focus. Like how do you do one thing exceptionally well and then expand? And that doesn't just mean the technology, it also means the unit economics and distribution. So I think we did make a lot of mistakes. I think what I learned was empathy and from the business perspective, focus.
All right, sir, that's a really great answer. So, was there any phase where the company's survival genuinely felt uncertain to you, and how did you tackle it?
All the time, to be honest, because in the beginning, like we didn't really generate any revenue, so we just kind of had to figure things out ourselves. We had some grants and some awards, and that was the thing that kind of kept us alive. I think in startups in general, there's a lot of ambiguity, there's a lot of uncertainty. I think I personally feel like I have some sort of I don't know, something is wrong in my head where I thrive in chaos. I really enjoy the 0 to 1 phase where you're fighting fires every day. That's why I've only done early stage startups my whole life. And I don't think I'm going to change that anytime soon because I just really enjoy that. That can be extremely stressful, but I think I probably just learned somehow to enjoy that. So I feel like that's just really fun. Not just with Oswald Labs, with Pabio, with First Quadrant, with all of these companies, there were always like periods where we were like, we don't know what we're doing. With Pabio, we burned through millions of dollars to find out. So it was a very expensive lesson. But yes, I think there were a lot of times where there was a lot of uncertainty. But yeah, I think as a founder, you're used to this idea that you just have to like do the work every day, and then one day it's gonna be better. And I think it doesn't feel demotivating as much as challenging. So I think, yeah, there were many times for all of the companies that it was extremely uncertain, but I think that's part of the fun part of this business.
Great, sir. So, like from customer conversations, what did you discover that you didn't anticipate at all? Like, was there something?
In accessibility specifically, I think the diversity of needs. I think in the beginning, when we invented the dyslexia-friendly reading mode, and we worked with someone who did a research paper to show that like kids with dyslexia can read 21% faster using our technology versus without. it just started from that weekend hackathon project, right? I just read some guidelines and research papers to figure out how can I build something that would make it easy. But then as we get to like building it for everyone, and our mission was to build technology for the next billion users. So all of the people who are not able to use technology, that could be because of financial constraints, because of different disabilities like visual impairment or cognitive disabilities, or maybe you're just in a place where technology is not accessible to you. That meant that the needs were very diverse. I used to think that accessibility was kind of somewhat homogeneous in that you could make things work with a screen reader or fix the contrast issues and stuff, and it would be okay. But I realized even like in visual impairment, it can be from mild to severe, or like there's a whole category of like other impairments. So the question was like, how do you build something for everyone? And we tried our best to use a technology with like vibrations and speech and multilingual in ethnic Indian languages and all of this stuff. But I think the other surprise was how emotional these conversations were. Like people who had been excluded from technology their whole lives, when something finally worked for them, people were really grateful, and that was really overwhelming. Also for me personally, it's not something you anticipate when you're just kind of in building mode. So I think, like I said a minute ago, I feel like Oswald Labs, the main thing I feel like I learned was kind of empathy. How do you put yourself in someone's shoes that you cannot relate to so directly, and think, what is the thing that I can do to make it a bit better and easier? So I think that was the thing that I feel like I didn't anticipate, both how different the challenges are for everyone, and also how do you try to reconcile that when you cannot relate, but you can still kind of build that muscle of putting yourself in someone else's shoe and then kind of trying to solve the problem from their perspective.
All right, sir. Now I would like Nitansh to take it forward.
Yes, sir. That was a really great answer, sir. Now I want to ask about Pabio. Like after you were done with Oswald Labs, you started Pabio. So how was Pabio started? Like, did it come from solving a personal problem, or you just figured out that this could be a sustainable business?
Yeah, well, we figured out that it's not going to be a sustainable business. Much later, though, we had burned through millions, but that's a story for another time. No, it was definitely a personal problem. So my co-founder, Carlo, he used to run a company before, and he was looking for the next challenge. And he thought, let me just ask my friends, what is the problem that I can solve? And so he went to his friend's house to ask them, interview them that, hey, what are the problems in your life, like for a startup idea? And then he went to the next friend, and then he did this with all of his friends, but he came back and he said he couldn't figure out a startup idea. There's no problem that excited him from all of the conversations with his friends. But what he realized was every time he would go to their friends' apartments, they weren't really nice places. And so he would ask his friends, like, why don't you invest in like, getting an interior designer and getting a really nice, furnished apartment? And everyone would say the same thing. They would say, interior design is expensive, furniture is expensive, and why would I invest in buying all of this designer furniture and spend tens of thousands of dollars when I'm renting and I'm going to move in a few years anyway? And so that was the common pattern. And so we realized that if we could somehow combine really high quality designer furniture with an interior design service, but then you don't have to spend $20,000, you might just give us a monthly subscription for everything, that could be a really cool business. And so we did that for 2.5 years. We furnished hundreds of apartments in Switzerland and then in Germany. It was really exciting because even though hardware is hard and eventually it didn't work out and all of that, when you like show someone a render of their apartment and they're really excited, that's one thing. But then when you like actually set it up and then they enter their home for the first time, and your home is such a personal place, like it's where you feel safe, and then if you can make that feel so good for someone, that is like such a priceless feeling. So that building technology but kind of having an impact in the real world, that was really exciting.
Yes, so this was really insightful. Now, let's get to the fundraising part. Like, what's the toughest part of fundraising that people don't usually talk about?
Um, I think it is just a part of the job like every other. Like it's nothing kind of more special. If anything, it's like a bit annoying. It can be a bit demotivating because you hear no's a lot. You basically hear no all the time, right? Like constantly. From investors, you respect for reasons that sometimes just make no sense. YC teaches you that everything that's not like a hard yes is a no. And the reason doesn't matter because people would say all sorts of reasons to justify the thing, which is just that they don't want to invest, which is totally fine, right? But it's really hard to kind of not take that personally, even though it's clearly not. So managing this kind of in your head is harder than the actual fundraising process, I think. Because I mean, if you hear from any of the stories of startups that are successful, you'd hear you go to tens, 20, 50 investors before you get the first yes, right? So you might be spending weeks on calls and just getting rejection one after the other. And that makes the next call a bit easier because you're a bit practiced, but then it also makes the next call that incrementally a little bit harder because you're just coming from this swarm of rejections. So I think that entire feeling is a bit annoying to deal with, but when it starts to work, it starts to really work. Like when you get that first few yeses, then it's really like riding the wave, and then it works great. So I think. That's I think is the emotional part, and then there's like the annoying stuff like the due diligence processes, the weeks of legal documents, term sheet negotiations, investors who ghost you, people who sign everything but then don't send the money. So there's like a whole long tail of other things. But I feel like the personal thing, it's like applying for a job as well. Like you keep sending applications and people ghost you or reject you, and it can be really demotivating to do the same thing again the next day. But then when you start getting the first yes, then everything changes and you feel like it was all worth it. It's very similar in that way.
Great, sir. So now I want to ask about YC. Like, how did Y Combinator happen? And did you had anything like we want to raise only from YC, or like what was the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those who don't know, Y Combinator is a startup accelerator based in San Francisco. They invested in some of the most popular companies like Airbnb and Reddit and Instacart and Coinbase, and in India as well, Kazaabook, Razorpay, many Zepto, right? A lot of these really cool people. So it's really cool to be in a room with them. It's super humbling, extremely inspiring. No, so for us, we had already raised $1 million before we did YC because we were here in Europe. And we realized that if you have to move to Silicon Valley for 3 months to do this program, we were running a physical business where we wanted, like my co-founder was literally going to people's houses to set up the furniture. And so we knew that we want to be close to our customers. So it didn't make sense to do YC. But then because of COVID, the YC batch was remote. So my co-founder and I talked and we said, let's just apply. And if we don't have to move, if we can do it from Europe, then we should give it a shot. And so it's a standard application. You fill in the application, you make a little video, and then you might get selected for an interview, and then they interview you, and you get the answer the next day. So it's a pretty standard process. So we did that. We were really lucky that we got in because like the acceptance is like 1 or 2% or something. It's like very statistically hard, but it's not like you have to convince them. It's more like they're looking for founders who will make big companies, right? Either way, and you just kind of have to show them that this is that opportunity. So if you have a good team that can execute, you have some market, you have some early traction. Most companies, like many companies, even pivot afterwards, right? So it's really more like you're just saying that you're a good team that can build, that can execute, and they'll figure it out eventually. That's kind of the thing that they want to see.
That must have been so fun. Now,
after you were in that circle, the what advice and what was the learning that you got from the whole YC partners that completely changed how you think about businesses and finding the product market fit?
Um, I think that there is a lot of good advice. Some of it is really simple, make things people want, talk to your customers. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot there, but it kind of makes sense. And if you just listen to them, I think it makes sense. For example, I'll give you an example. So when we were doing Cabio, we had this idea that we want to sell longer term contracts because that generates more value for us. So we invented our own unit called MOX, months of koi, and we would like tell ourselves uh, sell higher MOX. So it doesn't matter what's the contract value, just care about the duration. And we would talk like how many MOX did you sell today, and like our KPI was MOX. So we were tracking this made up KPI, right? And so Michael Seibel, who used to be the president of YC, he founded some really cool companies like Twitch. He was my partner. And the first time we pitched this, I was like, oh, we have this growth. And we showed the graph of MOX. He was like, what the hell is a MOX? And this is nothing. And we were a bit hesitant, but in the middle of the batch, we of course changed our KPI from this made up nonsense to monthly recurring revenue like every other company. And that kind of made me realize that the deeper lesson is that like it's a bit like every time YC gives you advice and you think that you are the special snowflake where this advice doesn't apply to you, like use standard KPIs or make something people want or talk to your customers, then they're right and you're kind of wrong. I realize that. I feel like PMF is not about kind of impressive growth numbers, right? It's about like people who love your product, who tell others about your product, even if you don't ask them to, who would be upset if your product is not there anymore. So we had growth, but we were doing a lot of marketing and we were kind of buying growth and didn't have that organic pull as much. So I think there's a lot of lessons, but I feel like most of them are just really simple. You just kind of have to pay attention and there's a reason that they've seen so many companies, right? Like thousands of companies. So it makes sense that they would be able to see some patterns of like what are the common mistakes that founders make. And I think, by the way, you don't even have to do YC for that, right? Like you could just find these in essays and their videos. So yeah, I think my main lesson was kind of listen to people smarter than you. Like don't ignore their advice, like their peer-reviewed, statistically significantly seen advice. I think it makes sense to pay attention to that.
Makes sense, sir. So I think now Manya will take over.
Sir, so talking about myths, what's the most common myth about startups that reality shattered for you?
Myth. Okay. Thinking out loud. I feel like maybe I would say, so on the YC advice, make something people want. Maybe that changes today because now we live in a world where building product is easy, right? So this idea that you build a good product and they will just come, maybe that is now getting to this myth status. Because I feel like this idea that a good product would sell itself probably doesn't. I think distribution is at least as important as the product, right? Like you see companies that have excellent distribution and not a great product doing really well, and companies that have a really good product but haven't invested in distribution don't. So I think that's something that is important. The question is how do you, like, it doesn't mean do ads or something. It definitely still means that you have to build a good product so that people refer to other people and you get word of mouth and you get good distribution. But I think just a good product is probably not enough anymore. I think the other and maybe the bigger myth is VC. Like either that you need venture capital, or if you, or maybe just that means it's a good thing, even, I feel like. Because like what you're doing is you're taking money from someone and selling part of your company. So they're kind of like a customer almost, in a way, that you're selling the dream to, that one day this company will do well. Why is that something that's celebrated, right? Like that doesn't mean validation. It doesn't mean success. It just means that now you owe someone a return. So raising money just means that somebody believed in you, they bet in you, but it doesn't change anything fundamental about, are you right? Are you building a good product? You know, we may raise millions of copy, but still pivoted away. Like I feel like money amplifies direction, but it doesn't fix if you are not directionally aligned. It just gives you a little bit of a cushion to try out ideas and invest in growth. So I think maybe, now that I think out loud, the biggest myth is that raising money is somehow a criteria of success.
That's really insightful, sir. So, my next question is, if you had to start Oswald Labs once again in today's ecosystem, what would you do differently?
Um, well, knowing what I know now, I would definitely build only one product, not many. I think it would be the B2B SaaS accessibility platform, you know, auditing, testing, go really deep and build the best solution before expanding. And of course, I would leverage AI from day one. Like, for example, already back then, we had a technology I built called Auto Alt, which would use a computer vision model to analyze images to generate alternate text for people with visual impairment automatically. Now, this is a standard feature in like Instagram and stuff, but that was like many years ago. So now with LLMs, this is like basically you can like generate images, you can understand images. Like the technology that we were using back then, we are now so far away from that, so ahead, that I think today's founders building something in the accessibility space have this superpower. So I would definitely be very AI native. Like I think with these language models, there is so much of scope for building technology, exciting technology, and also like technology that doesn't leave anyone behind. Just think about it like from the perspective of, if you use like Google Home or Alexa or Siri or in your phone, even an assistant, you use it for convenience, but somebody who might not have, uh, I don't know, an arm, who can still say what's the weather and book me an Uber, for them it's such a bigger thing, right? So I feel like with this LLM technology, we will build consumer products, but I think they would have an outsized impact for people who are typically not able to use a lot of technology. So I think I'm really excited about like what kind of products will be built in a post AI world.
Yes, sir, that is true. AI really helps in today's times. So my next question is, and not mine, like a lot of people's questions is, if I want to start my own startup, how should I do it?
Um, I think just start. You know, I feel like I don't have a better answer. Like start by building. You know, you don't you wake up in the morning and you experience a problem personally, and you realize that based on your background as someone who understands business or technology or design or something, you're uniquely positioned to solve that problem in some way, right? So just do that. Like wake up, start building, start build anything, find a problem and build a solution like today, and show it to someone, and then kind of get validation, listen to feedback, iterate from there. Like I feel like a lot of people wait for something, like either wait for the perfect idea or a co-founder or a degree or something. But if you think about it, a lot of successful companies, they don't look at all like the original concept, because eventually you'll be doing iteration, you'll be having judgment to figure out when to change your mind. So I think just talk to users obsessively. The market will already kind of push you in a direction, you know, accept that you're going to fail at some things, but build kind of intuition for what works. But I really feel like all of this is secondary. You just start by starting. Like just find something that you find exciting and just see what you can build for it.
That's really informative, sir. So we would now move on to the last part, that is the rapid fire.
So rapid fire.
Okay, sir. So first question in rapid fire round is bootstrapping or venture capital?
The answer is yes. I feel like the answer is yes because it depends. It depends on the business. VC means you want to scale fast, grow fast, winner takes all, maybe zero sum. Like it's a bit of a different thing. Bootstrap means cash flow, sustainable, retain control. I've done both, and I don't think one is better than the other. I think it depends.
Okay, so next one is Forbes 30 under 30 or 10 by 10 bachelor thesis?
Ooh, okay. So I was in the Forbes 30 under 30 list before I submitted my bachelor thesis. I didn't get a 10, I got a 9. So now I feel like I want the other thing better, definitely. Maybe the bachelor thesis. But no, I think jokes apart, Forbes 30 under 30 is a vanity metric. It is just press. Of course, it can open doors for you and maybe people know you a bit and whatever, but if it's recognition for something else that you've already done. But studying hard and writing a good bachelor thesis, I think that has a lot more value. So I think, and also because I didn't get the 10, I definitely think I want that now.
Okay, so that was really inspiring.
So here it comes the end, sir. A huge thank you to Mr. Anand Chowdhary for joining us today and sharing such incredible insights with our community. Your journey is a true inspiration for everyone at CBS. And with that, this ends this episode of Off the Cut. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.